Hey everybody, how's it going? So I got a new series that I wanted to start today on chess tactics. I'm calling it Improving Chess Tactics, and we're going to go through and sort of go up, several different segments, along the kind of rating spectrum of tactical puzzles. And I'm going to solve some puzzles and sort of offer you guys my thoughts on how to approach them. So I'm gonna start at 1,000. So rating level of about 1,000. So the first video we'll have here today is going to be from 1,000 to 1,200. And as you can see, I've went in and sort of manually set the puzzles to be such that it'll give puzzles in that rating range. And I'm gonna go all the way up to about 2,600 to 2,800. Because my own personal best is around 2,700. And yeah, just I'm gonna sort of offer you guys my thoughts on how to approach puzzles in the different ranges. So sort of wherever you are, in solving tactical puzzles yourself, hopefully you'll get something out of this. I did start to make this video series previously, but through kind of trial and error, I decided that this new way of approaching it, of breaking it into segments, is sort of the way to go. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Before we get started, though, I do want to just say a couple things about my thoughts on tactics, how to approach them, their value, things of that nature. So outside of playing, long games and analyzing those games, as well as looking at games by chess masters that have been well annotated, I think tactical puzzle solving is one of the most important things you can do to try to help improve your chess, especially for people that are, less than, say, about 2,000 rating, with the idea that if you miss a tactic, that can cost you the game. If you make a move and don't see the tactical refutation, it can cost you the game. Or if you're looking at candidate moves and miss a tactical opportunity, that can also, in a sense, cost you a win. So they're incredibly important, I would say. I think when you first start in chess, the importance of tactics training is going to be to allow you to just sort of get quick wins, because people will be hanging pieces, hanging, various checkmates or whatever it is. So there'll be things that you want to be able to quickly spot, so that you can, take advantage. As you get up in, start climbing the rating ladder, I think tactics become more important, not so much because they actually appear on the board, although ultimately there are going to be tactical sequences that do appear on the board. They're just going to be sort of less frequent, I think, as you go up the rating ladder. You're going to see fewer tactical mistakes. They will definitely still be present, but tactics become more of a thing there, and I would say roughly around my rating level, where you're using them to refute your own candidate moves, or you're using them to say, my opponent can't do this because of this tactical refutation. So there's something that kind of occurs in the background, even though they don't necessarily appear on the board. So yeah, with that, just a couple of ideas about the importance of tactics training and where I think it's going to be relevant for you guys. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So yeah, like I said, going to do some puzzles here in the 1,000 to 1,200 range. And I would suggest you guys go ahead and pause the video, before I start giving my thoughts on the puzzle, and just try to solve it yourself. I think you'll get more out of it if you do that. Although, it's definitely not necessary. So yeah, with this one, let's see what we've got. So we've got an endgame situation, we've got even material. This looks to be a situation of king activity. It looks like these guys over here are locked, so there's not a whole lot of interest. It looks like the interest is all over on this side of the board. I can't really draw a circle very well, but yeah, so the first thought that I have is king to g4, with the idea that if they do something like play f3 check, then we have king to g3, and that would be setting up what's called a trebuchet position. And essentially in such a position, the side who has to move is going to be losing, and in this case white would have to move, so that should be losing for white. Yeah, it seems like the move that sort of makes the most sense to me, so let's go ahead, go with it. Okay, so they don't do that. Yeah, here, I mean, if we do king f3 and they play king f5, we can't go here because they'll take this. They'll have the opposition, and we're going to have a hard time getting over to the queen side to win their pawns without them taking our pawns. So the next move I look at is f3 when they have king e4, and I can't go over here because they'll just take it. Yeah, this is actually pretty interesting. I've always found personally kind of endgame tactics problems to be relatively tough, relatively speaking, to be sort of tougher than most, even though you wouldn't think it's the case because there are fewer pieces. So yeah, let's look at this again. f3, king to e4. Yeah, I can't really touch the queenside pawns. If I try to play king h3, again, they just take on f3. Again, king f3, king to f5. Wow, this is actually an interesting move. Alright. So what if king g5? What was the first position, by the way? Is this? So yeah, if I play king g5, sorry, the first position was, yeah, was that. Yeah, if I play king g5, that should just be repeating, and that doesn't seem to be good either. Alright, so what do we have then? King f3, king f5. f3, king e4. Stumper right out of the gate. King f3, king f5. Okay, so let's check out, maybe I was a little quick on the opposition point. So king f3, king f5, if takes, takes, and then if we just start going over this way, importantly, this pawn is protecting this square. So when we play king to c2, they would have to play like king to c5. Then we have king to b3. They have to come down here, and we take the, yeah, so maybe I was a little too quick to kind of write this off. We'll take here, they can take here, we'll take here, and then this is winning. So yeah, I was a little too quick to write that off. So let's just check this one more time. King f3, king f5, takes, they'll take. They have the opposition, but that shouldn't be relevant. King d2, king d4, king c2, and king c5, king b3. Whoops. King to b6, king to king takes a3, king takes a6, king takes b5, and that's winning. Okay, let's go for this. Yeah, really interesting. Interesting 1093. So you'll notice when I do these puzzles, I'm always going for accuracy. I'm not just sort of saying what is my intuitive feel for what is correct, because with these tactics problems, there is a right answer for every move that they have you play. There is one move that is noticeably better than all the others, and if you don't sort of calculate precisely, then you can mess it up. That was like a several move sequence problem as opposed to like probably like a 2 move sequence problem, which I think is most common at this level. And yeah, you want to be precise, and that gets to a point that I'm a big advocate of when you're doing tactics problems, which is just to go for accuracy over speed. I think when you're being sufficiently challenged, you should be getting like 60 to 70% correct. Um, Although you're trying to get as many correct as you can, of course, but realistically, when you're being sufficiently challenged, about 60 to 70% is my experience of how many you'll probably get right on average in a session. But yeah, definitely go for accuracy over speed. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. So we got a situation where they took our queen. I forget what they call this. There's some name. Um, I know people know it out there. But yeah, I totally forget the name of this sort of trap in the, I guess this is in the Italian or something. But yeah, the idea is bishop takes f2 when the king is forced to come to e7, and then knight to d5 check is checkmate, because this knight has these 2 squares. These guys are covered by the e5 knight. The bishop holds these squares, and yeah, so mate in 2. So this is the kind of problem I think you generally see at this level. And yeah, again, to this point of accuracy over speed, I would suggest setting yourself a time limit, which is to say, if you are not for sure that you know the answer to a problem, make yourself look at it for a certain amount of time. And I would say to start out, you'd want that time to be about 5 minutes. I personally do 10 minutes. I don't really think you need to do more than 10 minutes, because realistically, like in a long over-the-board tournament game, you're probably not going to be spending more than 10 minutes on a move very often. And maybe it's just too hard if you need more than 10 minutes. But at a minimum, I would say spend 5 minutes. Don't allow yourself to make a move until you're sure you've got it. All right, so what do we have here? So our knight is attacked. This queen is potentially vulnerable. We do have a check here. We do have a check here. Whoops. And yeah, when we're doing tactics problems like this, evaluating checks and captures is going to be one of the first things that we want to do. So which check is more interesting? So this queen a4 check looks like it could just be met by b5, and then we would have 2 pieces hanging, and that doesn't look to be particularly good. This check, they can just take it, which suggests this guy, which is forking 2 loose pieces. That actually looks to just be winning a bishop. So I actually think that might be the best. So we got an even material situation. Yeah, I do think that looks to be best. I just want to double check and make sure there's not anything I'm missing. Yeah, let's go for this. Yeah, that was a 1-move sequence. Huh, that's interesting. All right, let's see what we've got next. All right, so first thing I notice is that, again, we want to look at forcing moves, checks, captures, and when we get a little higher up the rating spectrum, threats are going to be more of an issue, but I think sort of at this level, it's generally checks and captures. And oftentimes, this level of tactical problem solving, we're going to be looking to either decisively win material or checkmate the opponent. So rook e8 check. If queen takes, rook takes check, is at least winning a queen for a rook, so that has to be good. if rook e8 check, king to g7, looks like we should have there queen takes g5 check. And if they recapture, then we can take the queen, and we'll have won a rook in that situation. And that seems to cover basically black's options. So rook e8, either they can move their king or they can take it. And yeah, that sort of looks to get it done. Yeah, again, if they do this, we take here, it's with check. So they have to do something about it, and then we can get our queen back, just winning a rook. Alright, good stuff. Alright, what do we have here? So I noticed this pawn is potentially, you know, running up the board. So let's look into that. So if we do ace or h6, probably rook to d4, h7, rook to d8, and then we would have rook to g8. That looks pretty good. And always this rook is just holding this king away from the pawn. Yeah, so I think I like that. Also, if black just tries to run their pawn too, it's important to know that we're queening first. If you just count the number of squares, it takes each of us 3 turns to queen, but we queen first since it's our move, and our queening is with check. So that should squash the attempt for black to get a queen themselves. Yeah, so it looks like just stopping this rook getting back idea with rook g8. This counterplay idea doesn't work. Yeah, let's go for this. So yeah, even if they take our rook, we've basically given up a rook but gotten a queen in return, and that's definitely something you'll take. Okay, so in this situation we're up 2 pawns. This kind of looks like a possible theoretical king and pawn ending. So if we play rook to g4, forcing capture of the rook, we'll take, they go here, then it looks like we should just be able to get our king around. If they play king f3, then we play king f5, we've got the opposition, and that's a winning king and pawn endgame. So let's just check that one more time. Rook g4 forces the trade of rooks. They'll take our pawn. We recapture. Rook g4, rook takes g4, h takes g4, king takes g4, king e5, and then yeah, their most probable move I would say is king f3. When we get to f5, we've got the opposition, we're winning. In this kind of situation, we need to at least get to one of these 3 squares with our king, and if they don't play king here to f3 and say instead play king to f or king to g3, then we can just play king to e4, and that's totally winning as well. Yes, let's go for that. Okay. Yeah, so another thing you'll notice, you know, as we go through these videos, because I personally kind of have topped out at about 2700 for my tactics in the chess.com puzzle sequence, I'm going to be getting probably a lot more of them right in these earlier few videos. I'm still going to try to model good process. I'm going to follow my rule about taking 10 minutes unless I'm, you know, pretty much certain about the solution. But yeah, I expect I'll be getting most of them right. But as we go further up the rating scale, I do expect to start getting more wrong. Okay, so let's see. So checks captures threats. So knight f7 check, forcing king to g8. Knight h6 is a check both with the knight and the knight and the queen. If they play king to f8, queen to f7 is mate, and if they go back to h8, then queen to knight f7, king g8, knight h6 double check. If they then go back to h8, then queen g8 check forces knight takes g8 when the king is sort of in a box, and we have knight f7, which is the famous smothered checkmate. Yeah, that looks good to me. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we got sort of looks like even material here. Notice this bishop is hanging, or is loose, I should say. I also noticed that this queen is potentially short on squares. So if we play something like knight a4, we're taking all these squares away. The bishop's got this, the pawn's got this, the bishop's got this. The only square is this guy, a5. And do we have something for that? Knight a5, I don't see it. Whoops. So knight a4, king a5, b4. b4 just queen takes a4. Although also knight a4, queen a5, bishop c3. Hitting the queen, we have all these squares covered, so the queen's horizontal retreat doesn't work. Yeah, I think that works. They do this kind of interposing move, so this gets them retreat squares for their queen. So we're not winning a queen, but we're at least winning a piece for a pawn. So that should be good. Okay, so we've got several more pawns than white in this situation. It seems, just on the face of it though, that we're running into this potential issue with a pin here. h6 check. If they move their king to any one of these squares, that breaks the pin, which is at least interesting. Maybe that's just a little too complicated, or just being a little bit too cute. Rook takes g4 check. Rook takes g4 check. The only move is king to f5. King to f5. Then g6. Whoops. Then g6. H takes g6. H takes g6. G6. H takes g6. And then, sorry, let's start it from the beginning. Rook takes g4 check. King to f5. g6 check, h takes g6, h takes g6, king to e4, or sorry, e5, and then rook to e4 is checkmate. Yeah, let's go for that. Okay, good stuff. All right, so this sort of looks like a study problem. I think this is a situation where we've got to keep the opposition. Again, opposition is where the kings are just lined up, opposing each other. And generally, the side that has to move, it's generally bad for them. And yeah, I think that's sort of what we have here. So I expect king c3, king b5, king c3, or sorry, king b3. And then if they move back to c5, we'll move back to c5. If they move here, we don't want to go here, because if we try to go up here and get this pawn, they're going to be faster coming over here and getting our pawn and then running this guy down to queen. So yeah, this just looks like a defensive task rather than trying to be offensive and queen ourselves. Yep. Okay, so we'll do a couple more here. Okay, so this looks like a situation of a queen sacrifice. So it looks like we have queen takes b1, king takes b1, and then this rook just holds the king off when we have rook e1, which would be checkmate. So again, let's just check that. Rook takes b1, or queen takes b1, king takes b1, rook e1 is checkmate. Okay, so it looks like we have even material. This looks like one possibly about deflecting the king. So the king is defending the rook. If we play something like f3, that is trying to pull the king away. If the king captures here, well, they can't capture the pawn because the rook's defending it, but if they capture here, then we can just take this, which wins a rook for a bishop, which is definitely a good exchange. And then instead, if we go here and they just move back, we can go forward and be threatening to queen when it looks like they have to, well, they can't take us there, so they'll have to go back here. If they do that, yeah, so let me start from the beginning. F3, king to g1, f2. If king to g2, then rook takes, and if they take here, then we just queen. So yeah, I suspect we're going to be winning an exchange here. Yeah. Okay, so just as normal, looking at checks, captures, threats, the first thing I notice is this rook g1 check. When there's king h3, queen to f5 check. If king h4, then bishop f5. Looks to be bad news for white when they can only interpose with the queen, and it's essentially, I mean, it's over after bishop takes g5, which would be checkmate. So instead, if, let me back up, sorry, rook g1 check, king h3 force, queen f5. If they interpose here with g4, then we have this check, which at minimum is winning here, but actually, sorry, let me start from the beginning. Rook g1, king h3, queen f5, g4, queen takes f3 check. If they move their king to h4, then we have queen takes g4, which is checkmate. So yeah, this looks good. Alright, so they didn't make us go through the whole sequence. Alright, we'll get a couple more. Maybe just try to get to 15 here. It looks like we've done 13. So the first thing I notice is this knight takes f7, which is going to be forking these two guys. And if king takes f7, then there's queen takes e6. And that looks to just be bad news when queen g, or king to g8 looks to be forced. And just queen f7 is checkmate. So let's go through that again. Knight takes f7. If black does nothing, or moves their queen, say, then we can just win a rook. And if they try to capture, then we play queen takes e6. They play king g7, and we play queen f7 mate. Yeah, that looks good. All right. So yeah, so this kind of looks like a I think they call this like a lawnmower kind of checkmate situation. So I noticed this rook is just walling off this escape route for the king. So if I did something like, wow, that's kind of a drunken arrow there. If I did rook to g3 check, and if black captured king takes h6, then rook to h4 would be checkmate. But black doesn't have to do that. After rook g3, they can play this. And there we just have knight f7, which is checkmate. So let's just double check that. Rook g3 check. If king takes h6, rook h4 is checkmate. And rook g3 check. If king to h8, knight to f7 is checkmate. Looks good to me. All right, good stuff. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna sort of continue in the series here. This will be the video for the 1,000 to 1,200 rating level, and we'll sort of go up, like I said. Before I kind of reset my stuff on chess.com, I had kind of reached the 2,700 level. So we'll at least go up to 2,600 to 2,800 and sort of see how it goes from there. I hope you guys got something out of the video. Let me know in the comments, and be on the lookout for the next video here in the series soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.